Sports teams have been playing without fans for what seems like a century. But what happens when you change your team's name and move your ballpark during that time? With us is Joe Bradley, Vice President of Baseball Operations and Community Relations for the Worcester Woo Sox, and welcome to the Language of Business.
Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Joe, that was quite a move that you made during the pandemic. Worcester hasn't had a professional ball team since the 1880s, not to mention a state-of-the-art new park. How are people reacting?
The city of Worcester has just been absolutely great. We are now beginning our second homestand where we're at 100% capacity. We began the season only at 25% capacity during the entire month of May. And the ovation that we've received from Worcester from the moment that we relocated here and the entire process from 2018 on, when we announced that we would be leaving Pawtucket, has just been outstanding.
All sports arenas are now coming back to life. What percent of capacity are you at? And in terms of the atmosphere, how does it compare to pre-COVID levels or a pre-COVID feel?
Oh, well, we're certainly selling out games, but it's been great to welcome fans into the park and see this place at full capacity. We've had Worcester Public School students on weeknights where we've donated thousands of tickets to students in the Worcester Public Schools. But just in general, the pandemic, it was a year and a half, but it felt like an eternity. And so to finally be able to see fans and see this place rocking is really quite something, and it's special for all of us.
How about advanced ticket sales? Have they lived up to your expectations, and what do you foresee moving forward?
Oh, yeah, they certainly did. I mean, we have 2,200 season ticket holders here in Worcester, and our wait list at the moment, I believe, is already, we've got over 400 people on that wait list. Just to give you a sense, in Pawtucket, I think the most season ticket holders we ever had, even when Pawtucket was sort of in its heyday in 2007, 2008, some of the most successful years that we ever had. And even in those years, I don't think that we were ever north of 1,000 season ticket holders. So the reception that we've seen from everybody in Central Mass and everybody in this region has just been outstanding, and that's certainly been an aspect of this whole process that has us all really excited.
Even though COVID restrictions are being lifted, tell us about who are wearing masks. Are the fans? Are your employees? How about coaches and umpires? What do you see that's happening and why?
Sure, yeah. So now that Charlie Baker has lifted some of the restrictions here in Massachusetts, we are encouraging those who are not fully vaccinated to still wear masks, and those fans who are vaccinated are welcome to enjoy the festivities without wearing a mask. So there are still some procedures and guidance in place from Major League Baseball for our players. Just recently did the league allow media members to go on the field for things like interviews, things like batting practice, and things that we're typically accustomed to when we were in Pawtucket. So there are still some restrictions in place on the player side, but things have definitely begun to loosen up for our staff members and our fans here at Polar Park.
What adjustments have you had to make with concessions and merchandise?
Anytime that you change cities and have to come up with new branding and you've got new logos, you're not exactly quite sure how all of that is going to be received. Our merchandise store is slammed absolutely every night. I just talked to Kat Burns, who's our director of merchandise, and Brooke Cooper, who's our VP of marketing, and they are just slammed.
As far as business goes, how do you work through the transition without fans in the seats?
It was certainly very difficult. If you had told me going into our 2020 season in the winter that our entire season would be canceled due to a global pandemic and that our staff would be running an outdoor dining operation at McCoy Stadium in Pawtucket in the outfield, I would have told you that you were crazy. But that's exactly what we did. We staffed it with pretty much our entire full-time operation. So there's no question that the pandemic really took a toll on us, but we're grateful to Larry Lucchino, our entire ownership group, for keeping us all together during what was a very difficult time.
I'm sure you have several comrades in arms with respect to other minor league teams throughout the country. In general, how have the minor league baseball teams fared as a whole during the pandemic?
Oh, it was a challenge. Absolutely. I mentioned how we had no furloughs or layoffs. There were certainly clubs who, they were not in the same situation as we were. And we were also in a position where we were moving to a new city and we had a new ballpark to build and get ready to open. So there was a lot of teams that were sort of in different situations than we were. But I will say that getting this place open and seeing the crowd here, seeing this place at 100% capacity, I couldn't be more proud of my colleagues, our staff, our owners, everybody that got us to this point. We're all just so grateful to be playing ball here.
Joe, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Joe Bradley, Vice President of Baseball Operations and Community Relations for the Worcester Woo Sox.
Big choices after college, right? Grad school, maybe? Soar from your undergraduate major to a great career in business. Biomedical engineer to healthcare analyst. Health science to clinical systems analyst. Mechanical engineer to solutions engineer. Before you know it, you can have a master's degree in management studies. 9 months and you're in business.
One of the fun family activities to fully enjoy Cape Cod is taking a Cape Cod League baseball game. The Cape Cod League is one of the oldest in the country, dating back to the 1800s as the original Woodbat College League. Nowadays, one of every 6 Major League ball players comes from the Cape Cod League. Names like Chris Sale, Aaron Judge, DJ LeMahieu, Walker Buehler, Jason Varitek, just to name a few. It's a really long list. However, just like everything else during the pandemic, the Cape Cod League was dealt a curveball and wasn't even sure the 2021 season was going to run up until the last minute. Of the 30 teams making up the Cape Cod Baseball League, one of the most successful has been the Yarmouth Dennis Red Sox. We welcome Steve Foucher, General Manager of the YD Red Sox. Steve, how difficult was it to put together a team this year when there was no 2020 Cape Cod League and not even a 2020 NCAA League as well?
Well, it was difficult for us this year because we had to figure out how we were going to have a team that was able to perform here on the Cape with all of the COVID restrictions on top of it. Those variables right there made it a challenge because, A, we didn't want anybody to get sick. So we figured out the way we were going to do this was we were going to bring all players in that were vaccinated and not bring in any players that weren't vaccinated. That presented challenges in itself because of the different states that these players are from, and they're mostly around 20, so they had to wait for the other demographics to get their shots first. We toyed with that for a while. And then on top of the things, doing the coordination with Cape League and trying to figure out how we're going to keep everybody safe, myself, the players, and the staff here. We started in March with those challenges. We were under the guidance of the state. The states, in that time during the March and April period, had us at a capacity of less than 200 people, which is really tough because Cape Cod Baseball League is a nonprofit organization, and we count on those fans to be here. That is our income resource. So we had that challenge.
Thanks, Steve. Steve Foucher, General Manager of the Yarmouth Dennis Red Sox.
There's a moment in your bones when the fire takes over. Blood is running, heart is pumping as the battle gets closer. They can say what they want now, 'cause we'll be screaming out, we can be heroes everywhere we go. We can have all that we ever want. Swinging like Ali, rocking our bodies, standing on top like a champion. Keep your silver, give me that gold. You'll remember when I say we can be heroes everywhere we go. Keeping us down is impossible, 'cause we're unstoppable. Oh, we're unstoppable. We're unstoppable. Every spotlight, every soundbite, everybody who gave up is just a fuel for wanting him more than anybody against us. They can say what they want now, 'cause we'll be screaming now, we can be.
As the world is reopening, everybody wants to go see a sporting event, whether inside or outside, but are all of those sports created equally? We're on location with Gabe Sanders, who's the director of cross country and track and field at Boston University, and welcome to Language of Business.
Happy to be here, sir. Thank you so much for having me.
Behind you is an indoor track. Obviously, you coach outdoor track. Does that matter when it comes to reawakening of the world?
For sure. I mean, I am no COVID expert by any means. I listen to health experts and medical experts, and my understanding is, but being outside, it's much more free. So it's a lot easier going to the outdoor season than it was the indoor season, pending regulations.
So right now, but are you practicing indoors or outdoors for track and field and cross country?
Right now, our indoor facility is closed in the summertime, but the outdoor facility is open. We don't have that many students on campus, but with the weather being what it is, we'd rather be outside anyway.
Professional sports are reopening left and right. What's happening at the collegiate level, Gabe?
Slowly but surely, it was definitely segmented depending on your conference regulations, to depending on your school regulations, and even depending on your state legislator and what they chose to do. For us, for instance, a year ago, we had probably unofficially the largest indoor meet in NCAA history. We had over 4,000 athletes over the course of 2 days. And this past fall, we had a limitation of 25. That's 25, not 2,500, 25 in this building at a time. So, slowly but surely, as vaccines and transmission rates have gone down, things have started to open up. We've increased capacity, we've increased participation. And I anticipate the way things are going this fall, we're going to start seeing a little bit more of a overarching normalcy around the country, especially here at BU.
You mentioned different states are working through this in a disparate manner. With BU being a city school, do you think your approach to it is different than, say, UMass out in Amherst?
I can't speak, and I don't want to speak too much on what anybody else is doing outside of here. I will say at Boston University, I'm really proud of how the university at large and also our athletic administration handled things. I mean, Boston University was, with our researchers, scientists, professors, we were able to engineer our own COVID test in-house, have our own testing protocol, contact tracing protocols. For the most part, had a very safe campus when it came to COVID. We had the hybrid model. Students were able to come back in person and have that in-person experience. And many other schools weren't able to have that, or they had high positivity rates around the country. So, even though we're in a city school, BU being more of the secluded campus that it was, we had a good handle on things. And I'm really proud of how we handled it.
As you're looking forward to the new academic year, has COVID affected your recruiting at all?
Ironically, this was the best year of recruiting that BU Track and Field has had in years.
That's great. Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm really, really excited about the people and the level of student athlete coming in. And ironically, the restrictions that we had worked in our favor simply because we got past a lot of the fluff in recruiting. That fluff tends to be, focusing on, facilities on hand, the visits in other parts of the country, like, oh, we're going to go to a football game and have a wild weekend. We got to dial in on relationships and the vision of what we want this program to be, the prestige of the university itself. And that really attracted a lot of young people.
Staying on that theme of BU doing so well, both internally and externally, do you think any of the protocols necessitated by COVID are going to become permanent?
I'd like to think maybe not officially, but one thing I'd like to say unofficially, our sickness rate outside of COVID plummeted.
It's true. Nothing during flu season. Nothing. Yeah.
Unequivocally, the healthiest year of a team I've ever been a part of in my entire career. And the same can be said for many other athletics coaches, like low counts of the flu, of strep throat, of mono, of even the common cold. So a lot of the general hygiene protocols that were put in place, I hope are here to stay because those kept us healthy unto themselves. Overarching, we had to be that much more organized with how we wanted to get things done. Talking to many of my colleagues, they had to be hyper organized to the nth degree. And that's only going to make us better. Wherever you see challenge, you find opportunity. And that's what we've done. And that's what we're going to continue to do.
Gabe, as you and your fellow coaches from across the country follow athletes and especially those who are going to the Olympics. How do you think COVID's going to influence them?
I mean, really, a big part of this past year is you really figured out who wanted it, who wanted to step up to the challenge, and, who was not going to have any excuses. Because a lot of the athletes, I know some of their coaches personally, they didn't have access to the facilities that they normally do. They didn't have access to a lot of the resources that they did, but they went to the park, they went into the mountains, whatever they had to do to continue to prepare and stay dialed into their mission. Just that mindset should carry over to the rest of the athletic population is, if you're going to do what you want to do what you got to do, So, yeah, there were a lot of roadblocks for a lot of people, really everybody. But people navigated. Those that are going to be champions, those are going to be successful. They navigate the challenges and keep moving forward on the path.
Gabe, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Gabe Sanders, Director of Cross Country and Track and Field at Boston University.
Are you a problem solver? Do you see the big picture and the small details? Want to turn big data into big decisions? Take AI to the boardroom. Translate rocket science into the science of business? Build your career at digital speed with a Master of Science in Business Analytics. Be ready for careers like analytics consultant, data science, analytics strategist, data translator, BI analyst, technical business analyst. 10 months and you're in business analytics.
How do you take an outdoor sport and then force its athletes to be inside when the best they could do is work on conditioning and maybe do some mock competitions? We welcome to the Language of Business Malcolm Doldrin, who's the head of women's lightweight rowing at Boston University.
Thanks, Greg.
Good to have you here. How do you manage a sport like crew when, in the best of all possible worlds, you're only out on the water for a few weeks, maybe even months per year, and now you've got to reschedule everything around a pandemic?
I guess the first answer I'd give you is very carefully. When everyone was in lockdown, I think it was really difficult for my athletes to be able to see the kind of light at the end of the tunnel. And I'm still trying to encourage them to keep training and to keep building their fitness. Once we've got clearance to go back outside, I think a lot of them started to go on long runs. Luckily for some, they were able to have their singles and get out on the water and train that way. But when we all got back to Boston, it was different from what we've expected. We had to really allow ourselves to be creative with the training.
How did you and your team stay motivated? I can only imagine that pulling ergs, while good for conditioning, all of the time indoors and never going out in the water gets a little bit old after a while.
Yeah, you have to kind of create a mental game out of it. And for some of them, it's every time they take a stroke, they have their meters that'll count up on their monitors. And so for them, I kind of tell them to put a dollar sign next to that number. And every stroke they take, you can watch those dollars pile up. And, when we get down to competitive racing, really what it's about is you kind of have to make a game out of it to keep yourself motivated because your team depends on you. And these women had big goals.
Were there any opportunities at all, Malcolm, to compete last year?
In March of 2020, when we got shut down, not at all. So we were all on our own, all indoors. But once we got back in the fall, no racing, but able to train. And then this spring, we actually put together a few races against Boston College. I actually raced at our intercollegiate rowing championships the end of May, where we were able to win the lightweight women's double. So did quite well.
From a conditioning standpoint, if you're in an 8, each person has 1 oar. But if you're in a single or a double, people are going to have 2. Did that affect an individual athlete's conditioning at all during the time that you were indoors or out in the water in, shall we say, a less than traditional approach to the sport?
Actually, I think it helped to be able to be in the single when you're in a small boat and something is going wrong. Well, you know whose fault it is and you can't hide. And so it really takes a lot of time and a lot of effort to kind of dial into your movement and your rowing economy and to really understand how to make improvements. And that time where you can just work on figuring out your strengths and weakness, it really allows you to translate that into the big team boats, to really feel what it's like to move a shell on their own. They're just so much more dialed into doing it together.
Putting the pandemic in our wake, so as to speak, what are your plans now for next year?
We plan to go full steam ahead. I'm really excited about the ability to actually have the group together and to really have everyone kind of feel chemistry and the culture that is really part and parcel to BU Lightweight Rowing. We've been around for under 10 years and we've become one of the top lightweight programs in the country. And that's really large part is due to our culture, due to our team leadership and having everyone in the room together. That's what I'm looking forward to the most.
What did you learn from last year that if we never had a pandemic, you wouldn't have actually learned at all?
Oh, wow. I think personally, I think that I could handle a lot more than I thought I could. I lost my assistant coach to another job in May of 2020, but did not anticipate the hiring freeze. So from May of 2020 to literally June 1st of 2020.
You were in your own single.
I was in my own single, responsible for my 40 athletes. So I had fantastic team leadership. I didn't know how much they could handle until really seeing them in action and really seeing how much they cared about the program and about making sure things went really smoothly for everyone and everybody that helped make BU 130 as fast as we could be this year.
Malcolm, thank you very much.
Thank you, Greg.
Malcolm Doldrin, the head coach of women's lightweight rowing at Boston University.
Support for The Language of Business is from Boston University Questrom School of Business. We're also available as a podcast on Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, or wherever you get podcasts. Thanks for watching.